are. A very good morning to you, Grenada, and the rest of the world. It's the morning after, isn't it? The 8th day of February, 2019. Yes, sirree. Certainly hope you folks are fully recovered. Haven't had much time to recover, I would imagine, but I certainly hope you're up and about and ready to take on the rest of the world on this day. Brand new week ahead of us. Got lots of work to do. Lots of work. Take it on with a smile on your face, with optimism, with hope. Hey, then there will come a day when you'll sit back and say, yeah, I did a good job. I'm proud that I've served my country and served my country well. Pilgrims, let's get down to brass tacks this morning. Got a lot going on here. Interesting that I'm saying we have a lot going on here because the truth of the matter is there's something missing from today's program. And as you can well imagine, because yesterday was a holiday, we do not have a national report for you from the Government Information Service. I won't exactly say they took the day off. Maybe they took the day off from the report, but they were pretty busy yesterday bringing you coverage of the military parade and the activities down at the National Stadium as Grenada commemorated its 45th anniversary of independence. Well, this morning we're going to begin by bringing you, for those of you who may have missed it yesterday, the address which was delivered by Prime Minister Keith Mitchell. That's where we're going to get started this morning. And it being a Friday morning, yes, I did speak with him a few minutes ago. He started with us last Friday? Yeah. Brian Pitt. He's not actually going to be here, but he's going to be talking with us by Zoom. And let's keep our little pinkies crossed that that works out just fine. But I did speak with him. Then, I want to bring you an excerpt from the program we did last night. We Chat. A lot of you joined us last night for that. And interesting conversation, as always. Interesting conversation. And this morning I've captioned the little piece that we're going to run for you. The practice of deception continues. What the heck is he talking about? Hang in there. Hang in there. You're going to hear that piece, and it will be self-explanatory when you listen to that this morning, so please check it out. As you look at the rundown on Facebook, you probably noticed there that I have 2 independence prayers for Grenada. Now, because there's so much going on, I'm not sure we're going to have time to sneak those in, but we'll give it a shot. Those are 2 prayers that appeared in social media over the weekend. And I thought, hey, very, very powerful prayers. Very simple, but very powerful. And so I thought I'd run that by you this morning. Okay, so there you have it. That's the sort of mischief we're going to get into over the next hour. But first, we are going to begin. Hello, Lydia. Lydia, she says she's very early today and gives us a thumbs up. Yeah, girl, you're early. We're not going to complain about that. We're very happy to see it. Very, very happy to see it. Now, we're going to begin with the address to the nation yesterday afternoon at the National Stadium by Prime Minister Keith Mitchell.
Thank you, my dear brother chair. The person who just introduced me, our young brother, Her Excellency Dame Cecilia Grenada, our Governor General, colleague ministers of government, presiding officers of the Houses of Parliament, other parliamentarians, former Governor General Sir Daniel and Lady Williams, other knights of Her Majesty's realm, former Prime Minister Tillman Thomas and family, distinguished members of the diplomatic community, former members of parliament, other heads of regional and international organizations, Cabinet Secretary, Mrs. Beryl Isaac, permanent secretaries, and other distinguished senior public servants, the Commissioner of Police, Mr. Edwin Martin, and Mrs. Martin, Mr. John Williams, Chairman of the National Celebrations Committee, honorary consuls, members of the business community, special invited guests, sisters and brothers all. We are gathered here today for an auspicious occasion, the celebration of Grenada's 45th anniversary as an independent nation. To some, February 1974 might seem like just yesterday, while to others, it is a time far removed from our memories. Whether you lived through the period or read about it in our history books, February 1974 will be forever seen as a tremendous significance to all Grenadians. It marked, sisters and brothers, the culmination of a journey intended to liberate our country from the vice-like grasp of the colonial powers and the start of a still unfolding journey as an independent country responsible for shaping our own destiny. The road has been long and at times very daunting. However, the experiences along the way have shaped us into who we are today and will certainly influence our future evolution and growth as a nation, and will create the legacy that we want to bequeath to the next generation of Grenadians. Sisters and brothers, 4 to 5 years is a significant milestone. Whether it is the age of a person or the number of years as a nation, as an independent nation, the age of 4 to 5 generally implies a sense of maturity for a beloved land. This perception is absolutely applicable how we have matured as a nation. We have experienced the turbulence of youth and the challenges of a young adult life. Today, we are well poised, backed by the lessons of our cumulative experience, to propel ourselves into the future, eager to maximize the benefits of all opportunities that presents itself. Throughout history, we have often heard that Grenadians are resilient people. More importantly today, we are becoming even more resilient as a nation. We are the inheritance of this resilient nation, a rich legacy that has been passed from generation to generation. For us to be considered worthy of this inheritance, we must continue to hold high the ideals of the social and economic justice. We must continue to embody those ideals and to fiercely defend them at all times. Our foreparents fought for those same ideals, refusing to be second-class citizens in their own land, believing that social and economic development should be open to all and sundry and not just a few. Those of us blessed to be here today, are duty-bound to pass on this rich history of sacrifice and shared gain to our younger generations, so that they too will go on to further develop this nation through the dedication, patriotism, sacrifice, and service. If we continue to adhere to these basic and fundamental principles, there is no limit to how far we can advance as a nation. Sisters and brothers, nation building is no easy task. We must all transition through the various stages of development, learning valuable lessons as we go along, while making and refining plans for a sustainable future. There will be pitfalls along the way, as our history has clearly demonstrated. But our ability to rise, our determination to succeed, will be beacons that light the path of our development. February 7th, 1974, will be forever etched in our memory, as the birth of this independent nation. That struggle for liberation from colonial powers united us. In the ensuing years, that same fierceness and resoluteness have united us, and unfortunately at times have also divided us. As we celebrate 45 years of independence, I want to recognize those who have unreservedly put country above self. Those who are cognizant that sometimes what is good for one category of persons must also be good for the wider population. As Prime Minister, not even popularity among the electorate should warrant my making a decision that is not in the best interests of Grenada, Carriacou, and Pitt Martinique. As citizens of this beloved country, we must strive to leave this country in a better position than we met it. Although we may not personally achieve all that we want to, we ought to take pride in knowing that we have made a contribution to building a better Grenada and ensuring that future generations can benefit from this contribution. And also we can leave a legacy for those to follow. Sisters and brothers, look around you. What do you see? I see a nation that has defied political and economic crisis that threatened to destabilize us. We endured challenges. We fought valiantly for political and economic recovery, and now the stage has been set. The foundation laid for the future we have so long envisaged. A future where we solidify economic, political, and social gains that we have made for the benefit of all Grenadians, Carriaconians, and Pitt Martinicans. We must continue to press forward on that upward trajectory. As I reflect on the significant milestone of 45 years of independence, I am heartened by our progress as a nation, and I have renewed confidence in our future. Sisters and brothers, we are batting well. The runs are coming in singles. But with each passing year of independence, we are adding to the tally. Soon, we'll reach our half century, which will be another commendable milestone. But it is not merely the years that count, sisters and brothers. It is the achievements we continue to record. Our achievements as a nation and the achievements of individuals who continue to carry our flag with pride. Our students across the nation continue to excel. Those pursuing studies around the globe continue to showcase the brilliant minds among us. And our athletes in various disciplines are building on the legacy of those who have gone before them. These successes, sisters and brothers, of which we are so proud, were achieved through the collective efforts of the parents, teachers, and education officials, and the enabling environment created by government. It is that same collaborative approach, sisters and brothers, that we must take to address the current challenges that have the potential to impact the future of our children and by implication our nation. It is incumbent therefore upon all of us as responsible leaders in all sectors of our society to bridge that gap and to act in the best interests of our nation's children. I assure you here today, fellow Grenadians, as we have done on countless occasions in the past, that the government of Grenada stands committed to engaging with our partners and stakeholders in the spirit of mutual respect, in the quest for economic and social justice for all. As current gatekeepers of this beloved nation, we must continue to ensure that our children are afforded the best education possible, and they are not deprived of opportunities to excel academically. For athletes seeking to emulate the exploits of our Jaguar Kirani James and all other sporting icons who have excelled regionally and internationally, we must also ensure that they are not denied the opportunity to showcase their talent to the world stage. Today, as we focus on our inherited legacy, on our role of building on that, I take this opportunity to recognize a young man who is not only talented on the cricket field, but one who possesses the type of grit and determination that is deserving of recognition or emulation. Having made his international cricket debut in 2003, Devon Smith earned a recall to the West Indies team for the Test series against Sri Lanka last year. And just recently, at the West Indies senior level, he came close to a double century, scoring 199 in a match against Barbados. In recognition of Devon's remarkable efforts in regional and international cricket, the government have instructed the Ministry of Sports to name a stand in the cricket stadium in the honor of Devon Smith. We have Roy Lewis and Junior Murray already recognized. We trust that this will enable his legacy to live on. Sisters and brothers, we must jealously guard the advances we have made in this country. We must be wary of detractors, the forces that are working tirelessly to destabilize this country and hurt our future by any means necessary. Throughout history, it has been the inaction of those of us who could have acted, the indifference of those of us who have known better, the silence of the voices of justice when it mattered most, that has made it possible for those with questionable motives to triumph. Sisters and brothers, we'll be failing in our duty for future generations if we sit by idly and allow our future to be derailed. As a nation, Grenada continues to be a shining example among regional and international peers. Our economy remains one of the fastest growing in the region. Our debt to GDP ratio continues to improve significantly, and we are well on track to achieving the goal set by the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, ECCB, way ahead of that schedule. On the subjects of climate change adaptation, improved resilience and sustainable development, Grenada is also recognized as a leader on the world stage. These developments are not taking place by chance. Significant emphasis has been placed on developmental planning, and we are beginning to see and reap the rewards. You can expect, sisters and brothers, to see even greater emphasis on development planning going forward. We have just concluded another round of consultation that will inform the Grenada National Development Plan of 2035. This plan will help shape the short to medium term and the future of our country, identifying and promoting strategic priorities for the way forward: social, economic, environmental, and governance strategies. Many of you have contributed to those consultations, and we'll be calling on you again to validate that feedback as we refine the plan and work towards the final draft in November of this year. Sisters and brothers, fellow Grenadians all, our focus is on development that is inclusive. Yes, there is a government that provides administrative guidance for development, but our work must be informed by you, the people of this land. Your voice, your contribution is equally important to that process, as is our own leadership. We must ensure that our development transcends political differences. Whatever the government of the day, their work must be guided by the will of all Grenadians. This can only be achieved if we commit to the planning process and ensure that our national development strategies reflects the will of the people and not the preferences of any one political party. Sisters and brothers, great moments are born from great opportunities. Our opportunity to develop a blueprint for this country from the bowels of our people is now. I encourage all of you to seize this important opportunity. Country above self, sisters and brothers. That is the only way to ensure that the future of this country is all-encompassing. Let us therefore work together to create a legacy which we can all be very proud. We must hold our heads, our hands in unity to reach our destiny. The quote from our national anthem. Laying the foundation on which we continue to foster our growth as an independent nation. Now the words of our national anthem provides a timely message that should serve as an element of cohesiveness, binding us together as a nation. And I quote, "May we with faith and courage aspire, build, advance," unquote. Sisters and brothers, happy independence to all of you, the beautiful people of this beautiful land that God has given to us. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of the evening.
All right. There you have it, folks. Prime Minister Mitchell at the National Stadium yesterday afternoon. Now, a couple of things. First of all, Brian is with us. I'm looking at him on the monitor here. He is with us, and we're going to be talking with him momentarily. However, a couple of comments on social media here this morning I want to start with. First of all, Jude Francis is joining us from Peterborough with love. Good morning to you, Jude. So is Glenn Mark. Marina Williams Johnson says rubbish as she was listening to that address. Lydia James says we'll soon be out, Mr. PM. And Lincoln Roberts says, good day, brothers and sisters. Have a blessed day. Try to be respectful and kind to each other at all times. God bless Grenada. So says Lincoln Roberts. Now, Lincoln, I couldn't agree with you more. Absolutely true. But pilgrims, before I say good morning to Brian, I have to comment on two things that jumped out at me in that address because of irony. First of all, the Prime Minister talked about social and economic development should be open to all and sundry. Any argument with that? Absolutely not. I'll tell you what is so ironic about it. Yesterday morning, I sat right here in this very chair doing our independence program. And I read to you some comments that appeared on social media the day before. And people were talking about precisely that. The fact that the social and economic development ain't open to all. Isn't that ironic? And that, my dear friends, was before this address was delivered at about 5 o'clock yesterday afternoon. Huh? So, somehow it just doesn't make sense, does it? The other thing is, he also mentioned that the work must be guided by the will of all Grenadians and not that of one political party. Rhetoric? Come on, rhetoric or what? Folks, if you don't believe me, listen, you don't believe me, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. But do me and yourself a favor. When I'm through talking with Brian this morning, I'm going to run an excerpt from last night's edition of MECWE Chat, okay? And you will hear a discussion about how difficult it is to believe the authorities when we hear them speak. because somehow they seem to forget things that they have said earlier on, and they come up and say things which just absolutely make absolutely no sense. You don't believe me? Check it out. That's coming your way in just a wee bit. But right now, I don't want to keep them waiting any longer. Take a look. Take a look at that. Good morning, Mr. Pitt. How are you, sir?
Good morning, George. I'm fine. A little sore throat, but I hope you can bear with me while I clear my throat from time to time.
Well, we'll bear
You
with
hearing
you.
me, George?
I'm hearing you, and
Okay.
the issue I'm having is not with your sore throat. It seems like you have a slightly poor internet connection there this morning, and so you're coming in and going out, coming in and going out. I guess you were singing too loudly down at the stadium yesterday.
No, George. I didn't make it to the stadium.
We didn't make it to the stadium. Okay.
No, no.
Happy belated independence or belated happy independence, whichever, Mr. Pitt. Good to see you. How things?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. It was a very colorful day yesterday, and the day before, I must admit, Colors Day was very was well represented. Those bright green, gold, and red colors. Gold, I said, not yellow.
Yes.
Colors that dominated the streets of St. George's was beautiful.
You know, I mentioned that on the program yesterday. I was downtown the night before, just the night before Independence, and I was so impressed. Even at about 7 o'clock at night, man, the streets of St. George were just flooded with people in their patriotic colors. And even though there did not seem to be a very large turnout down at the stadium yesterday, again, people were very patriotic, wearing their colors.
You know, George, what is interesting is that in these difficult and hard times, I don't agree with the Prime Minister on certain things that he said yesterday,
Okay.
but it must have put a strain on some parents to find the right colors and costumes for their children to wear. They must have had to put out some dollars, and some people probably went into debt to get some of those dresses and T-shirts, etc., etc. But that comes along with Colors Day, I imagine.
Yeah, but it's become a bit of a hallmark with the Independence celebrations. Yeah, the Colors Day nowadays.
Yes, but George, reflecting a little bit, and I want to talk about two things this morning.
Go ahead.
One has to do with this idea of economic growth in Grenada, and I had a discussion with somebody recently about the indicators used to measure this so-called economic growth, and it seemed that we are growing economically without the people. Let me repeat that, George.
Yeah.
We seem to be growing without the people. What do I mean by that? Now, if you tell me that the economic growth is 5% or 6% or whatever the percentage is, and when a person goes to the supermarket, they cannot see that 5 or 6% for themselves, I mean, in what they're purchasing, then you're growing the economy without the people. And that is a problem, George. When I hear, for example, George, that the real estate market and industry is doing so well, I ask myself the question, and everybody should be asking themselves this question: who is buying and who is selling? Who is buying and who is selling? And if we reflect on that, George, we might very well find that the people who are buying are not Grenadians, and the people who are selling are Grenadians are catching their ass. Excuse my language, George. Grenadians who might be underwater, whose properties might very well be on sale by the banks, etc. So that Grenadians are owning less and less of this beautiful island as the day passes than we did in 1974. A good friend of mine, deceased now, George, who was an economist, a lecturer at UWI, said to me around 1980-81, said, Brian, this revolution would not last. And let me tell you why. Because Grenadians own Grenada. everybody own a little piece somewhere. A lot of people may not have title for it, but their family have lived on this parcel of land for donkey's years. And that is concerning to me. The real estate market is doing well. Who is buying and who is selling?
Yeah.
Am I pushing some buttons here, George?
You are, Brian, because later on this morning you're going to hear me caution Grenadians about listening carefully to what they hear, analyzing what they hear, pick up the phone call, make some calls, ask some questions, because reality seems to be totally different from the rhetoric that we are hearing.
George, it actually seemed at a point yesterday in the Prime Minister's speech, he was accusing people of fake news. Don't listen to the detractors. Don't listen to those people who might be telling you that this economy is not doing well. And I said to myself, how Trumpian, you know?
That's a new word, Trumpian. Yeah, man.
Yes. But George, while we're on this subject, I want to reflect on what, in 1974, certain things happened in Grenada and where we are now in 2019. In 1974, George, and I stand corrected on some of these issues I'm going to raise with you this morning, it was a policy of the Grenada government and then continued under the PRG that all land on Grandad's Beach would be leasehold for those people who want to build hotels. I believe the only two properties left on Grandad's Beach right now that are leasehold, and if I were the owners of Koyaba and Spice Island, I will try to get freehold, are Koyaba and Spice Island. All the other properties on Grandad's Beach, George, is now foreign owned, if I'm not mistaken. Again, I stand corrected. You know, in 1974, our economy was based heavily on agriculture, George. In 2019, it seemed that our economy is now based on selling passports. Is that good? I don't know that it is, George. In 1974, there was a viable opposition party in Grenada, George. I hear the Prime Minister talking about political parties, but they seem to be a one-party state in Grenada right now.
Absolutely.
In 1974, there was a viable and active media in Grenada. I don't believe it is the same today, George. You know, people have to, I think, write some of these comparisons down and see if, in fact, we have advanced in these 45 years of independence. And until we can do that, George, we can come to grips with where we're going for the next 5 years that will bring us to 50. You know, in 1974, I remember the PRG, the Gary government, on the introduction of SGU, the Prime Minister at the time called it resident tourist. You know, there was a season for cruise ships and there was a season for stayover visitors. He called it resident tourist. In other words, these are people that will be here for 12 months a year. And they will be eating off campus, they'll be living off campus, and all the people in the south of the island can add rooms to their properties, and everybody will live happily ever after. Right now, I believe it's almost all inclusive, George. And it's a major part of this economy. So if something happens down there, God help us. You know? In 1974, George, I believe most of the workers were properly and adequately represented by trade unions. Trade unions who bargained on their behalf for wages and better benefits, etc., etc., etc. If I stand corrected on this one, George, but I suspect that a lot of people in Grenada right now are working on contract.
That's a big issue.
And what does contract work do to you when you get to 60 and 65, George? I can vouch for that. I'm over 65.
Yeah.
You know, so we have to be careful when we talk about and celebrate independence and how far we've come or how far we've regressed, George.
Yeah, absolutely. Brian, thank you so much for reinforcing what I said earlier on. Just let me turn to Facebook for a minute. Glenn Andrew Mark says, I believe you, George. Sharon Elizabeth Roberts says, if you do not support the NNP, you have no rights in Grenada or talk. This is total rubbish. Sorry to those who do not like to hear the truth. I call it reality. Okay? Sonia McKee John says, poor my country we. I know how you feel, Sonia. Bernard Gilbert says, all the government of Grenada gives the people is fake news. Sharon also agrees with something you just said, Brian. She says, exactly, Brian. Non-Grenadians are buying up Grenada. And Ron Livingston says, very interesting conversation. Ron, we do our best. And you know, it's really not a hard job because what we're talking is reality, which is so obvious to everyone. You mentioned you had a couple of things to talk about. What's the other one?
Brian, let me just add one thing to the list between 1974 and 2019. This matter of the court. And I am very concerned, George, that the judiciary is under pressure. In 1974, we had a home for the court. It's called York House. Today, we don't have a home for the court, George. Justice is absolutely important. We cannot challenge the government of the day on certain things that they might be doing if we can't access the court. And people should be very wary, George, that we are in this predicament today. Last week, George, I mentioned about the cars on the road, and I just want to put an appendix to this. It seems that it is government's policy in today's Grenada to allow as many people as possible to bring in cars for sale. That's why when I talked last week about these fenced areas that around the island that you see cars parked for sale, as many people as possible are allowed to bring in cars for sale and put it in a bonded area. In other words, they bring in cars for sale and they do not have to pay duty at all. So that if a car duty paid was $100,000, and I can bring it in for $50,000 and put it in a lot and not pay the duty until I've sold it, every other person can bring in his cars for sale. And that, George, is a policy I don't know that government has given too much thought to, but the social fallout of this policy could be humongous. And a lot of the policies that governments seem to be enacting these days, George, we're not thinking of what the social fallout is. And I don't know who is advising. I don't know who is raising the question. But we must consider what the social fallout is for a lot of things that we are doing, for a lot of the policy decisions that we are taking. The social fallout, for example, George, of the passport issue, and I stand corrected on this, is we now need a visa to go to Canada.
Yep.
It's a social fallout. And in today's world, the Prime Minister has been talking about how well our students are doing, and I agree. We have some of the brightest students on the face of the earth, as far as I'm concerned, George. But it's almost impossible for them to migrate these days, those who don't have a scholarship. In my day, George, I could buy a ticket and go to Toronto and go to night school and advance myself if my parents could not afford to send me to university. And that was done on basically buying a ticket to travel.
Yeah.
Not very many young people these days can travel, George, those who don't have scholarships. So I understand there are a lot of young people now conducting on buses with 6 and 7 and 8 subjects that they can't travel. They don't have the opportunity to go to another land and advance themselves educationally and otherwise. And you know what that has done over time, George? It has made remittance important to this economy. Remittance important to this economy. It's something that we have not measured over time, George. But remittance must be now falling off because people are not traveling as they used to. Food for thought, George.
You know, all the hoopla about doing so much for our youth seems to be nothing but absolute rhetoric. You're talking about the inability of our youngsters to travel nowadays. Another big challenge the youngsters face is their inability to buy property on this island, again, because of this citizenship by investment program. And, selling out the island and making the cost of buying land here so exorbitant. Brian, let me ask you something. Are you in a mad rush this morning? Because I'll tell you what, I have a 20-minute segment here that I want to play, which will just enforce what we've been talking about. And if you can stick around, I would appreciate it, because at the end of it, I would really like to hear your comments. How about
George, today's a little difficult for me because I have a 10 o'clock appointment.
Okay, fine.
And I'm traveling next week, so I don't know whether or not we'll be able to do this next week, Friday, but I will let you know what my plans are.
Well, just hold on a minute. You talk about traveling next week. Big deal. There's a lady out there by the name of Sharon Roberts who's listening to you right now. You better talk with her, because she was gallivanting in Central America and Florida over the past few weeks and never missed a day here. As long as you got your smartphone, you're good to go, Brian.
Okay. I remember that, George.
Okay.
And I know that I've graduated from the Techno Peasant School. I'm sure I can find a way to be in touch with you.
Congratulations. And you've graduated from school, and at least you're still able to travel. Congratulations, my friend, and thanks a lot for joining us.
Thank you very much, George. Have a good day.
Okay, you too.
Great,
Mr.
bye-bye.
Brian Pitt having a chat there with us on this Friday morning as we head into another weekend. Folks, I'm going to take a little break here right now, but please make sure that you stick around and listen to the next few minutes. It's going to make your head spin. Hang in there.
Together with you, our customers, we energize our community.
Together with you, we energize our economy.
We are working together to give our nation a better tomorrow.
With you, we energize our future. Together, we energize our nation.
Thank you for partnering with us
as we energize our Spice Island.
Redleg, energizing our Grenada.
Juve chocolates, cocoa nibs, and cocoa balls from Diamond Estate Grenada are now available at Amazon.com, Amazon.ca, Amazon.co.uk, and GrenadaMarket.com. Try the sensational touch of nutmeg and a touch of ginger chocolates, 75% dark and rich, 100% pure cocoa, and their 60% dark and sweet chocolate bars today. Amazon Prime members enjoy free shipping on these orders in the USA, Canada, and Europe. GrenadaMarket.com. When you can't come to the island, the products of the island will come to you.
I'm always on the move. Training, traveling, competing.
A commemorative postage stamp.
So it's good to know I have Quad Bank in the palm of my hand.
Introducing e-banking, one of many customer convenience services from Grenada Cooperative Bank, and there's more to come.
It's swift, simple, and secure.
Welcome home.
Friends, it's now, let's see here, 10 minutes away from 10 o'clock, which means we are going to go just a wee bit over time this morning, so please bear with us. It's going to be worth your time sticking around. It has gotten to the stage where whenever you hear grandiose pronouncements coming from your authorities, please stop and think about how realistic or unrealistic they may be. Make a phone call. Ask questions. Don't just take those utterances for granted. We are being led down a garden path, but thankfully, it's coming back to haunt them. I want to play you a segment from last night's edition of Mekwee Chat. There was 6 of us. Jerry George was out there in St. Vincent, Beverly, Sinclair, and I were right here in Grenada. Catherine Edwards was in London. And for the first time, we were joined by a young man by the name of Ian Roberts. My dear friends, here is Beverly. She's going to set the scenario and spend the next 20 minutes or so listening to this and thinking about why you're here. Here we go.
The final 10 minutes I want to bung away on those people we elect to serve. You know, I listened to Senator Simon Steele in Grenada in a post-cabinet press conference this week. And I have to commend the government, the elected officials. When we talk about government, usually we're referring to the elected officials. But cabinet every week religiously, except on the other occasion in Grenada, they have a post-cabinet news conference where they have a cabinet meeting on Monday and they decide whatever they want to share with the public. And one of the ministers, and Jerry, it's not usually the prime minister, you hardly see the prime minister in one of these post-cap.
That's something that Grenada must be applauded for, like that.
Yeah. One of the ministers will host the post-cab and share information. This week, it was the Minister for the Environment, Senator Simon Steele. And he came on and he outlined some projects, some climate resilient projects, which he said, you know, we don't have any money to fund, so we have to stay close to the agencies that can provide funding for these projects. And I'm like, well, last year, just before the March 13th election, in fact, the election was on a Tuesday and the Sunday night before, the political leader of the party that won the election said, we got 117 million from the Green Climate Fund. Grenada was the chair at the time, plus another 18 million it was from the German government to do climate resilient projects. And while he outlined some specific areas where the fund from the Green Climate Fund was going to be used, the rest of the money, he didn't say how it's going to be used. And I am thinking if we got 135 million and the Prime Minister, well, he wasn't the Prime Minister then, but he's now the Prime Minister. But at the time when he was speaking then, he said, you know, this is not some wild promise in a manifesto or words to that effect. This is a solid thing that has been signed and sealed, so the money is there for Grenada to get. So where is the money? I haven't seen any of these climate resilient projects started. And the Minister of the Environment now is going to talk about all of these projects that they don't have no money to do. And I'm just tired of these people trying to take us for idiots. Because even if you're going to say, okay, these are not the projects which were approved for that money. The money was already approved. It's going a year now since the election. If the money was approved before the election, why haven't we begun to see implementation of any of those projects? Don't tell me that another 5 years is going to pass. And then when it comes up to the next election, you're going to see a flurry of activity to say, now we're ready to implement all of these climate resilient projects, all the money that we got since before the last election. I don't know about all you, but I'm tired of this. Really, really tired of it.
But Bev, let me just bring something alongside that. During the election, there's all this talk about the oil finds and how much money and how it's going to change. Mm-hmm. And that is why we needed to make sure who we right,
yes,
who was in government.
That is
to manage your money. I mean,
George,
we just have to stop it. We have to
and we as citizens need to stop taking this on people who are elected to serve us. Why are you going to plan another set of projects for which you have no money when we have $117 million and projects outlined that we should be implementing since the money was there, and since you have to know who to trust with your money, and you elect the people who you can trust with your money, but you still have not begun to implement the projects, and then you're talking about all of these projects now that you have no money to do. Give me a break, man.
This sounds like an extraordinary deception, because it's interesting you mentioned the 80 million principally of money coming from Germany.
Mm-hmm.
I'm aware of that fund. That $80 million is a regional fund.
Mm-hmm.
And it is subject to competitive submission of projects. The first set of projects, the concept note for these projects would have had to be submitted by December 15th. 100 projects were submitted from the Caribbean, which are currently under consideration. If those projects that are approved in terms of concept notes, then they are entered into the second stage of the process, which begins next month and ends somewhere in June, where you then submit and have considered full projects. It sounds to me like the minister has visited a major deception on the people of Grenada. That is the only fund I'm aware of that the German government has, in fact, is currently contributing to. The other fund, the Global Climate Fund or the Green Fund, variously known, also was a competitive fund, meaning that you had to, and it was open to not just the state sector, the public sector, but the private commercial sector and the non-government not-for-profit sector had equal access to those funds. But just as in Dominica, they maneuvered to keep the private sector and the NGO sector away from the money. And guess what? Because there was little or no capability in the public sector to submit and to win those funds over, not a penny of those funds came into Dominica.
Exactly.
So you are, in fact, running the risk based on narrow partisan, beat 'em up politics of denying Grenada the opportunity of getting substantial funding for resilient development projects. When in fact, the only approach that would work would be if there had been the public sector sitting alongside the private sector and the non-profit sector, and all three sectors working together to filter and distill out the projects of priorities and to bring their combined expertise to bear on preparing the documentation. These monies are not given free,
Right, but
you have to bid competitively for these projects. And it sounds like a fraud, a deception that has been perpetrated on the people of Grenada.
Dr. Mitchell, before the election, he said this was not some wild promise in a manifesto. This is something which already been signed and sealed.
He's right. It's not a wild promise in a manifesto. It's a wild promise in a pit toilet.
Oh my God.
Because his argument was that Grenada had already gotten the money. Had already gotten the money. 117.2 million from the Green Fund, plus another 8 million from the German government, plus there was another 54 million that was supposed to be shared between Grenada, Dominica, and Antigua.
Okay.
And St. Lucia.
No, he didn't mention St. Lucia. He said Grenada, Dominica, and Antigua.
Yeah, so St. Lucia is included.
So when I heard that, I thought I was under the impression that was granted directly to Grenada already. That's money in the bank there.
Yeah,
that's what the impression I got.
The minister has 135 million, which he has not started spending. but he's outlining projects that we don't have money for.
Okay, hold on, guys. I just decided to go to Google and pull this up, right? On 12th of March 2018, the Now Grenada says Green Climate Fund approves millions in grants for Grenada. The board of the Green Climate Fund has approved millions in grants for Grenada's water sector resilience and other projects that are linked directly or indirectly to climate change mitigation. A grant of $42 million and I think another 20 million. So I don't understand it.
Approved for what sector? Your water sector?
Yeah.
Yeah, 117.2 million. And he went on to break out the different water projects that it was going to be spent on.
Mm-hmm. This is a year ago.
The work hasn't begun on any of them yet.
There's no money. There was never any money in the first place.
Guys, it's
my observation on this climate resilience thing is climate resilience is not a project. Climate resilience is in your head. It's an attitude, it's a framework, it's an approach to things where you're going to do things in a substantially different way so that if and when you get that climate pushback, you will not be back to square one. It's a mindset. So the educational and motivational and public awareness building part of climate resilience is the single most important component of climate resilience. It's not a project. It's a process.
You know what, I'm really happy to hear you say that because last Thursday and Friday, I attended the climate change workshop down here at the Radisson. And it seems like the climate change movement, they're trying to move aggressively to sort of accelerate efforts to mitigate against climate change and build resilience in this place. At the end of the workshop, the people who put it on were asking the question of the attendees, those of you who believe that this is all going to happen, stand on this side of the room. Those of you who do not believe that this is going to happen, stand on the other side. Well, let me tell you something. I felt rotten because I was only one of two people who did not believe it was going to happen. And hold on, there were probably about 20 other people in the room. The reason why I felt that way is because I don't have to tell you folks, you know that countless millions of dollars have been spent on trying to educate the public about the possible impacts of climate change. And yet, the man on the street still knows very little about climate change. Very little. And my argument is that, yes, while they're spending big bucks, somehow the message is not getting across. Remember what happened last year in November with the referenda? They had these workshops all over the place, man, all over the place. And then on the eve of the referendum, the last one, you talk to the man on the street, I don't know what they're talking about. They just don't. They just don't.
Yeah, but all of those consultations were a joke. Yeah. Because they were set up as political meetings.
Yes, they were. And, you know, to me, a consultation is where you go out there to try and garner information from your audience. These people, the public felt that these folks were coming there and talking down to them, telling them what should be, rather than asking them how they felt. Okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was a vote yes campaign and they made no secret of that.
Yeah.
We're not consulting with you. We're having a meeting to tell you to vote yes.
Yeah.
There was no consultation. So
anyhow, I probably made a few enemies last weekend by, you know, standing out and saying that, hey, this thing ain't going to work. But I can't lie. I can't lie. This is the way I felt, and this is based on what I'm picking up on the street.
That's right.
You are right, George. It ain't going to work because there is no money in the first place to do anything.
Now you're telling me. No,
it's not even. It's not even the money aspect. I think, George, is because if you look at it organizations and stuff get tremendous amount of money to educate. The question is, where is this money going to? And oftentimes what you would find is that the so-called consultants are the ones who walk away with the big money. And much of the methodologies that they're using today is all methodologies to try to teach people.
Thank you.
It cannot work.
Definitely.
It's not working. It's not working. Well, anyhow, for those of you who believe that everything's hunky-dory, I admire you. I salute you. You go right ahead. But
time will tell.
Time will tell.
So are we going to 2:15 after? Is that what we're doing?
Did you say 2:15?
10:15.
10:15. Are we going? I'm just making sure.
Yeah, we could.
2:15 for me, Jerry.
We could. We made that promise, so we could.
Okay. Well, let me just read something here, right? Because I'm still back at this article, and I'm kind of glancing through it. It's an All Grenada article. The announcement of the funding came after the GCF board meeting early in March. However, the Grenadians learned of it on Sunday when Prime Minister Dr. Keith Mitchell told thousands in the final election campaign of for his national party. So it was, you see what I'm saying? They knew, but it was in the final campaign, all of this money was put in front of people that we have this money. It's similar like how we have sorted out this pension thing.
Pension thing, yeah. Because it's in one of those campaign delivery speech.
Yeah.
With the same Dr. Mitchell who said we have restored pensions and the only thing left to work on now is the methodology by which all of these payments gotta be made.
I remember laughing when I heard the doctor tell you that.
It was a campaign trick and people fell for it.
Anyhow, RT Margaret has just chimed in here and says, RT is quite right. It's a mindset, but everything in Grenada is political. And Jerry, what is the point of education if there's no change in behavior afterwards?
Oh, that's the point. Well, if the education is not geared to change in behavior, which is a problem a lot of health people have when they talk about things like health promotion, if it's not going to move towards behavior change, then it's just a gathering of information. That's all it is.
Yeah.
And that is what we do. We like to gather data and compile reports and put them on shelves. Nobody reads them.
No, we like to take and say we had that session. So we tick a box that says we had that session. And the other thing you hear is that out of this, people would have known, they would have learned. Says who?
Yeah. And it's like we talk about referendum the other day and these useless so-called consultations. They have this other set of consultations going on, George, about a National Sustainable Development Plan 2035.
Yeah. I hear that started up again.
Yeah. Well, I went to one of those about a week ago, and 6 of us went there together. And when we got there, half an hour or 35 minutes after it should have started, we grew the audience by 250%, because there were only 2 other people there when we got there, besides the president. and these things are just waste of time. So I got up in the session and said, and then they're talking about having genuine input into the plan. I said the intent, while the recommendations should be genuine, the intent of these meetings also need to be genuine. But we can't just be doing it because we get some money or we want to check a box and say we held this session. That's not a genuine intention. So it don't matter how much genuine suggestions you get. If the intent is not genuine, it don't make sense.
All right, let me throw something out at all of you here. In all fairness, I like to be fair. Let me ask you this. Yes, consultations on various issues have been held and publicized, but then you have the sort of turnout that you're just talking about, Bev. 6 people in your group plus 2 others, okay? Bev, the people who didn't show up are going to be the most vocal afterwards, saying that they don't know what's going on. They had the opportunity, but they don't show up. Why? I want to find out why. Why is it that people refuse to attend these consultations?
I'll tell you why. Number one, no interest is generated in these consultations.
Exactly.
That's the first.
I mean, no prior interest.
No prior interest.
Right.
No build-up. So you're going into a community to have a consultation on national sustainable development 2035. Nobody in the community know you're coming. Nobody in the community know what this plan is about. So those are the two primary things. There is no build-up of interest in the topic or in the consultation itself as an event. And there is no proper marketing and promotion of the event. Every time I go to one of these consultations, and I mean every time, it's a bunch of academics sitting down with some papers, talking to themselves, and expecting that what they're saying is supposed to make sense to the people who are not there.
Bev, thank you very much. That's the exact point I made at that workshop last week. I said, look at you folks in the room here, all academics. Excellent information being distributed here. But when this workshop is over, you walk out of this room and that information remains right there. Joe Blow on the street knows diddly squat about what went on.
But I think there's a much more serious underlying cause and implication of this low attendance. I think it is that, frankly, large segments of the population of our islands have lost confidence, lost faith, and have no trust at all in the structures and system of governance that we have, that they are going to deliver.
True.
They have no. So even if you had a massive public, promotion effort, you may get a few more people. But I guarantee you that the outcome would not be commensurate with the investment of the effort in public promotion, because people no longer believe that these governments are interested in ending poverty, ending vulnerability to natural disasters, and in building just and productive and profitable societies. Yes, people don't believe that anymore. So they're not going to waste their time to participate. Contrast that with promotions for a Destra Garcia show or a Marshall Montana show. And you know why they will go? Because they will know they will get the product will be delivered. The whining will be delivered. The lyrics will be there. The music will be there. The hype will be there. They will walk
and the alcohol.
Yeah, and they will walk away feeling that, I got my money's worth. But not so with the development type thing. And in fact, that is the way the boys in charge of these governments want it. They don't want an audience. They don't want more people of the society believing and wanting more information and coming to participate and engage them. And because we've lost the capacity in the Caribbean to confront these leaders with what it is they're doing, we've let them off scot-free. We have. And with that freedom, they are enslaving us.
Well, there you have it. Look at me. Was I lying to you? No, I won't. Pilgrims, that was an excerpt from last night's edition of MECWE Chat. And while you were listening, some very interesting comments were posted on social media. Gem FM, the Sheriff Caliste, says, the Grenadian people are easily moved by charismatic leaders and not character. There is not enough political pressure organizations. I guess he meant there are not enough political pressure organizations to hold government socially and politically responsible for their actions, especially if they made promises that they knew are not going to be possible. He went on to say that this present government is full of deception. That is why I'm not a fan of elected people for life, but service for life. And if they're not serving and lying, they must get out of the way and let someone else serve. The government of Grenada is not people-oriented. They believe that if they believe that the people ignorant. Okay, I guess he means here. They believe that if they keep the people ignorant, they can control them forever. Yeah. All right. Now, we've run over time, and I know you got to go, but I do have to take one more quick little break here. And after I do, I'm going to come back and wrap it up. We're going to skip the inspirational this morning, but I'm going to replace it with those two little prayers that I came across on on social media over the past couple of days.
Hey, Lynn.
Hey, neighbor.
Here's the bill I asked you to pay for me.
How did you get your electricity bill to be so low?
For one, we size our transformers just for what we need. And we unplug transformers, chargers, and other devices when they're not in use. We also replaced our light bulbs with LEDs.
They burn less energy, right?
Much less. I even replaced the seal on my refrigerator door to keep the cold air in.
And Grenlec is always advising us not to open the fridge too often.
That's right. And my family washes and irons in bulk.
With fuel prices changing all the time, how do you know if it is working?
We pay attention to the usage history table. Over time, our average usage has decreased.
So while Grenada can't control fuel prices, I can conserve energy and save money.
GRENADA, energizing our Grenada.
With free island-wide delivery, Hubbard's Building Supplies and Lumber Departments.
Hey, Lynn.
Hey, neighbor.
Here's the bill I asked you to pay for me.
How did you get your electricity bill to be so low?
For one, we size our transformers just for what we need. And we unplug transformers, chargers, and other devices when they're not in use. We also replaced our light bulbs with LEDs.
They burn less energy, right?
Much less. I even replaced the seal on my refrigerator door to keep the cold air in.
And Grenlec is always advising us not to open the fridge too often.
That's right. And my family washes and irons in bulk.
With fuel prices changing all the time, how do you know if it is working?
We pay attention to the usage history table. Over time, our average usage has decreased.
So while Grenada can't control fuel prices, I can conserve energy and save money.
GRENADA, energizing our Grenada.
Juve chocolates, cocoa nibs, and cocoa balls from Diamond Estate Grenada are now available at Amazon.com, Amazon.ca, Amazon.co.uk, and GrenadaMarket.com. Try this and sensational touch of nutmeg and a touch of ginger chocolates, 75% dark and rich, 100% pure cocoa, and their 60% dark and sweet chocolate bars today. Amazon Prime members enjoy free shipping on these orders in the USA, Canada, and Europe. GrenadaMarket.com. When you can't come to the island, the products of the island will come to you.
I don't believe this. I don't believe this. Ah, 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 ah. We did not have that microphone turned on. I see a note here from Lawrence. Lawrence is saying, "Hi, Mr. George, I'm not hearing you." Yeah, good reason for that. So let me run it by you again. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. In the mad rush here, I goofed. I goofed. I goofed. So, it's important enough that I share this with you. Prayer number 1, and we're replacing this morning, I said I was replacing a reading from the Holy Scriptures. Well, we're going to include the reading from the Holy Scripture, just one verse. But I want to share with you a couple of prayers that were sent out over the independence celebrations yesterday. First one says, "Oh my God, we bring our country, Grenada, before you today. We ask that you save us from destruction and desperation. We beg you to restrain the forces of evil that seek to remove joy, unity, prosperity, and peace in our land. Have mercy on us, Lord, a sinful people, and grant us your blessings. Guide our leaders, and let your wisdom prevail in all that they do. In Jesus' name, amen." That was the first one. Second one, "Dear Lord, give the leaders of this nation the wisdom and integrity to lead our country in the best direction. And give each one discernment, I pray, when making decisions or drawing up legislation and laws that they pass. And may the decisions that they reach be godly and wise. As the days become increasingly dark in our country, I pray that the light of your love will shine on this land. May peace reign in our nation and protect us from those who would seek our downfall. I pray. I really thank you that you have placed me in this land, and I am grateful that I am a citizen of this nation. But I do know that my home is in heaven. Amen." And the scriptural passage, the first verse of Psalm 27. "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid?" Psalm 27, verse 1. Pilgrims, pilgrims, pilgrims. That's going to do it. As I mentioned, these are so appropriate after listening to what you've been listening to over the past hour. We're almost into an hour and a half, and I do thank you for spending a part of your Friday morning with me. Do hope that you have yourselves a wonderful weekend, which I hope will include a visit right here on Sunday morning for the next edition of Sundays with George Grant. Until such time, Georgie Porgy sending God's blessings your way. And by his grace, we'll see you on Sunday.